in this ever-changing world.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we are exactly on the hour. Welcome, everyone. We are expecting more and more people to join because this will be a very valuable session. We are happy to have you at our webinar today, which will focus on how to switch from surviving to thriving in the work world that we live in. The speakers today will be Karin Kollenz, Professor of Strategy and Innovation at the EDHEC Business School and Head of Executive Education at the Chair of Foresight, Innovation and Transformation, short for the FIT Chair. Camelia Ram, Research Affiliate at the EDHEC FIT Chair. Dimitrios Kleftakis, who is President of AIMS, and me, Maria Shishkova, Global Head of AIMS Talent Management and Managing Partner of AIMS Bulgaria. So before we begin, a few housekeeping topics. The session is recorded so that whoever wanted to join but couldn't make it can see it later. At the end of the webinar, we are going to have a question and answer session, and please type your questions in the chat whenever they occur to you so that you don't have to remember them and so that you don't lose them. At the end of the presentation and the discussions, we will open the floor for questions and answers. So just a few words about AIMS and EDHEC so that whoever doesn't know us finds more information about our partnership. At AIMS, we service thousands of companies worldwide by finding the right senior leadership for them through executive search. We also support our leaders and our clients through providing board services and through a large array of services related to finding, uncovering their talents, insights through leadership and talent assessment, developing them through leadership journeys and skills development, and definitely last but not least, shaping and helping them create thriving cultures, especially in the challenging world that we live in. And Karin, can you please say in a few words the highlights about the EDHEC?
So EDHEC Business School, for those who don't know the school, we're one of top 3 schools in France, top 5 in Europe in finance, top 10 in the world. We are actually doing everything from BBA to executive education. And at the EDHEC Business School, we founded about 5 years ago the Chair for Foresight, Innovation and Transformation, where we focus on research in that area, on industry projects in that area, and on executive education. So executive education in strategic foresight, in strategic thinking, innovation and transformation. We offer open online courses, but also customized programs. And as I said, we do quite a bit of research in close cooperation with organizations and companies in order to develop thought leadership in the areas of foresight, innovation, and transformation to make everybody fit for the future. Thank you.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much, Karin. So this is a special day for all of us because this webinar is the first event of a cooperation between EDHEC FIT Chair and AIMS. Dimitrios, why are you excited about working with EDHEC FIT Chair?
Thank you, Maria. Welcome, everyone. It's very nice to have you with us today. It's a special day. We are excited to unveil the collaboration between AIMS International and EDHEC FIT Chair, a partnership dedicated to enhancing leadership skills in the face of organizational change. So this initiative will focus on delivering tailored executive education programs aimed at providing leaders and leadership teams with the necessary tools for innovation and transformation in a very dynamic business landscape. So our collaboration will also extend to co-creating co-leadership on key topics, contributing to research, but also leveraging our global presence in AIMS International to introduce FIT Chair programs to new regions. We're eager to embark on this transformative journey, Maria, with you and explore the impact our partnership can achieve. Thank you for joining, to everybody, as we dive into the future of leadership development together.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dimitrios. And Karin, what are the main reasons for collaborating with AIMS?
Well, the first thing that struck me was when my colleague Tollius mentioned AIMS International to me as a potential partner, was that we really have similar values and similar ways we work. AIMS and EDHEC, and particularly the FIT Chair, are kind of network-based organizations. So we respect diversity. I think we have, if I remember correctly, like 4 people calling in from 4 different countries, and all the team that has been working with us to prepare that webinar is distributed among probably 10 countries with even more nationalities. And what reunites us is that we grow rapidly because we have a very clear focus and a long-term purpose of what we want to do. Secondly, there's of course this obvious fit between what AIMS does in terms of leadership development and what the FIT Chair does in terms of executive education. AIMS coming from the people side and us coming more from the content side. So it's quite logic that we both support the development of leaders who build successful and sustainable businesses and create value for all stakeholders. And that focusing on the next generation, which is at the core of the strategy of EDHEC Business School. And last but not least, and that's probably the most important thing for me personally, is the fit between the people. When I met Dimitrios and his colleagues, and later on Maria and the team, and I'm just mentioning Dina and JD and Zainab and Supraj, who are all in the background helping us with this webinar, I felt that we have similar entrepreneurial spirit, no borders. We want to make a positive impact. We think long term, and it's exactly this long term thinking that we're also trying to instill in our clients and our partners, because we know from research that in a VUCA world, only those who have a clear long-term vision are actually successful.
Oh, you're absolutely right about that, Karin. And we know, based on all our development centers and assessment centers, that many of our clients are looking for strategic vision because it is so difficult to have it in this unpredictable world. So Camelia, could you please share some insights from your research or concrete company examples? What has caused this increasing importance of long-term thinking?
I think we can all point to some clear challenges that face us as in humanity, if you like, today, whether that is sustainability, inequality driven by aging populations, the cost of living, and the need to think about what is the workforce of the future in line with ever-changing technology, basically challenging us to reconsider how we will interact, how we will live, how we will collaborate with each other. And so those things make very clear to us that what worked in the last 50, 20, or even 10 years will not work for the next 10, 20, or 50 years. I mean, one example would be a multinational food and beverage company that we've been working with, where they've deliberately looked at these trends and decided to shift from inorganic growth, so via acquisitions, to organic growth, because they believe as well that R&D development times are going to be much longer due to regulatory uncertainties, due to supply side issues, due to ever-changing consumer tastes. And so what they've decided to do is therefore to really take a 10-year horizon to product development. And we see this happening in multiple sectors where, again, that time horizon of, that future back approach is becoming increasingly important. What is really important to note here as well is that long-term thinking is a skill that can actually be developed.
Oh, definitely. And this is creating a lot of hope. So let's see what our audience thinks. What motivates you and your company to think longer term? So please put your answers in the chat, and we'll be very happy to comment those. What motivates you and your company to think longer term? We are waiting for your insights, feedback, impressions, experiences. So the first one is coming. The need to keep our 105-year-old B2B family business competitive for many more decades amid the industry transformations due to digitalization and geopolitical events. Indeed, Stolis, the very fact that the company has a long and successful history does not grant that it will continue to be like that for the future in this very, very quickly changing world. And Nuno dos Santos comments, capital preservation and growth. Right. Having long-term plans and strategy in times like ours just makes us see and feel that we need to have even more information to make sound decisions. But at the same time, who has it in the times that we live in now? Please excuse me if I don't pronounce the name correctly. Gizutois, am I right? Values, what I and my company stand for, being responsible citizens. Right. Yes, values is a big word, and we frequently see it written in nice documents with fabulously sounding words, but various people read values differently. So unless we are harmonized, we won't be able to be really on one page. And change is upon us. This is coming from Arthur Burekas. Arthur, I do hope that I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Changes upon us in new areas such as e-commerce and modern methods outdates previous business practices. Oh, absolutely. And what about AI and the fact that it is quickly diving into our world without even knocking on the door? So, by the way, your answers, dear audience, are also visible to our guests and speakers today. So whoever would like to comment on some of the answers, please do feel free to do so. I'll stop just for a while. All right. And Leonie, thank you. To stay relevant, that is survival. And Leonie, exactly, this is what we are going to discuss, how to switch from surviving to thriving. And it's not only for the purposes of the rhyme, but also for looking into the future, because in each and every challenging situation, there is a hidden gift. And we are definitely living in a challenging situation. So finding the hidden gift is one area that we will discuss today. So let us continue. Thank you so much for your answers. A lot of insight and a lot of hope and experience in those today. And we may come back to them at the end of the session, although we are going to have more questions by then. So Cam, what are the main factors that motivate companies to think long-term according to research? Yep.
There are two main factors that I want to cite for the purposes of our discussion today. And the first is companies that recognize that there is value in exploring, not just exploiting existing resources. And in exploring, they're looking for opportunities for exponential growth. A really good example of this is the Amazon 1998 letter to shareholders, where Jeff Bezos states, this is day one for the internet, and if we execute well, for Amazon.com. He goes on to talk about the future being about personalization, where online commerce will accelerate the very process of discovery, and that fundamental measure of success would be the shareholder value that we create over the long term. And so if you like, there's this orientation for companies that are motivated to think long term in terms of saying, you know what, actually almost every day it could be a day one for us. There's always something new to learn. There's always something that gives us an opportunity to do something differently. And that's not about constant pivoting, but it's, if you like, pivoting also with a real end goal in mind, which is ultimately growth. And that can look and feel slightly different depending on the circumstances that face you. The second is the very nature of the firm. And so we've heard already through the chat that whether it's a family-run business or indeed capital-intensive businesses tend naturally to focus on the long term. So, for example, Lego is privately held. They're not governed by public markets, which therefore allows them, if you like, gives them a bit of flex in terms of looking at a 5 to 10-year horizon, not just in terms of capital investments, but also they think about it from the investments that they make in people. We also see governments that may oblige companies to think longer term, particularly, for example, in the Middle East, in the chemical sectors, in food and beverage, increasingly.
Oh, wow. Absolutely. And we see that, as mentioned earlier, in many of our large-scale assessment and development centers, one of the key areas which is lagging behind the others is developing strategic and innovation skills. And we need that more than ever. So, Cam, from your research, what are the skills needed to transform companies from short-term, or as you put it, exploiters, I love that, may I borrow it, to balancing short and long-term, that is explorers versus exploiters, because it's not only the shareholders that we are thinking today, we are thinking about a huge multitude of stakeholders. So what does your research show, Cam?
So our research has shown that 3 in 4 organizations are not prepared for the pace of change in and around their industry. And so we've introduced the concept through our research, having looked at different organizations that are able, so the 1 in 4 that are able to be prepared. So what differentiates them? And we've determined that they are future fit when their practices are aligned with the needs of the environment. And these practices are interconnected, observable practices that enable organizations to build advantages in 3 areas: foresight, innovation, and transformation. So underlying this, so the first practice is perceiving, which is about detecting changes, identifying signals ahead of competitors to gain a foresight advantage. The second is prospecting, which enables an organization to make sense of the changes detected. The aim here is to identify tipping points and invest once the time is right to gain an innovation advantage. And the third is probing, which is about acting on the insights that you gain from prospecting. And the aim here is to start a new course of action, mainly through experimentation and iteration. And this is what ultimately over time provides a transformation advantage.
Many people would say this is easier said than done. For example, detecting the signals. There are so many signals that we are bombarded with each and every second. So what are the main challenges in sustaining those practices?
The main thing is consistency. So and having structured processes and systems in order to create that consistency in an organization. Because building advantage in these 3 areas, perceiving, prospecting, and probing, requires ultimately an approach to building capability. It's not just about skills development. So yes, there is an element of needing to think about long-term, about strategic thinking skills, but that ultimately to be sustained in an organization setting needs to be combined with processes, structures, and systems. And key to all of this is leadership, right? Which is around keeping people inspired around why not focus on short term, why not just be exploiters, but actually be explorers. Leaders who can sponsor, if you like, communities of practice internally, leaders who can draw in external insight in terms of what are trends that are maybe around our industry on the periphery of where we operate, but that may actually upend what we do today. And leaders that also ultimately take action in line with a long-term approach, thereby role modeling that future-focused and future-fit behavior.
Absolutely. And speaking about the future-fit behavior, tell us more about the role of leadership in adapting to new realities. We frequently have those conversations with our clients, so having your point of view is going to be very, very useful and enriching.
So Ronald Heifetz and others refer to adaptive leadership as the ability to thrive under uncertainty. And thriving means growing and prospering in new and challenging environments. And so their research asserts that in order to evolve as a leader in today's world, you need three capabilities: resilience, robustness, and renewal. Robustness is about being able to perform well in a wide range of possible situations. So from our research, we know that foresight enhances your robustness. And a sustained commitment to foresight and innovation in turn accelerates renewal. Renewal entails a process of transformation. So as a result, foresight, innovation, and transformation combined lead to greater resilience, which is the ability to withstand shocks, and ultimately leads to adaptive leadership.
Oh, yes. Well, this actually explains why so many of our clients are interested in this big R word, resilience. And Karin, then please tell us, how can leaders get started?
So as Cam has pointed out, you start with building skills in individual leaders, and then you move to building capabilities in an organization in order to be successful in the long term. So for leaders, very recent research by my colleague and friend Michael Watkins from IMD Business School has proven that successful leaders actually do have superior strategic thinking skills. So as a first step, I recommend that leaders evaluate whether strategic thinking is something that comes naturally to them. They can be doing that, for example, in a 360-degree assessment at one of AIMS assessment centers. Alternatively, you can also just read, for example, through this book that has just been published earlier this year. I don't know if you can see it. Well, no, that doesn't. No, it works. The 6 Disciplines of Strategic Thinking by Michael Watkins, and reflect how much time do you actually spend thinking strategically in an average work week, for example. And a great way then to further develop your strategic thinking skills is our Strategic Foresight Executive Certificate. So that's a course that it's an online course that takes 5 to 6 weeks. In 5 weeks of content, we start with why is foresight actually important? How can it help you to become better, to become more resilient? We allow you and teach you to scan for signals to make that difference between what is important, what is not important, what is relevant, and what has a big impact on the potential future of my company. Then we move on to developing scenarios, combining different factors. What could the future look like? So you can work on that for your organization or also for yourself in terms of, for me as a leader, what does the future look like? And then we move on in week 4 to craft strategies, and last but not least, to really build a portfolio of actions to make all that implementable. Because what we see as a main challenge is that sometimes online courses, while they might be successful in giving you the theory, but it's really hard for an online course to then have that translated into what you do in your day-to-day business. And this is why we have decided to do weekly live classes. So that means that actually within the cohort, you meet once a week with a professor, Camelia, Renee Rohrbeck, myself, and you discuss the concepts and you discuss how they can be applied right away in at your workplace. There is the possibility of the premium option, where you have 5 hours of personalized coaching sessions with one of our foresight specialists, which can be used individually or also with a group, with a team from your organization. Now, the strategic foresight platform powered by the intelligence tools of the World Economic Forum is also available to those who do the course, which allows you to actually really use what is probably the best foresight platform available out there for doing your research about the scenarios for your company and for developing companies for your strategies. You can see some of our previous participants' comments about the course. Now, good news is that the next course starts on May 15th. And if you're part of this webinar and want to sign up, just use that QR code. There is a 20% discount for you.
See, I told you there are gifts. So this is one of the gifts. Thank you, Karin. And one more similarity between AIMS and EDHEC, we also approach the leadership development needs of our clients in exactly the same order. So we first start by leading oneself, and then leading smaller teams, then leading bigger departments, and only then leading organizations. And then when we can collaborate together and work on strategic and innovation skills. But how do you support the entire organizations to think longer term?
Well, as mentioned before, strategic thinking skills are necessary. They're a necessary foundation. But what really makes a difference between a resilient company and a, let's say, mediocre company are organizational capabilities. Now, that means embedding skills in an organization into the daily routines, into the processes, the way things are done. So a company continues to think and act long-term, even if that individual leader that kind of brought that strategic thinking skills into the organization might leave. And this is exactly what we do through our customized programs. At the FIT Chair, we offer programs in the areas of strategic foresight, so strategic thinking, everything around disruption and foresight, in the area of innovation. And here it can be extremely practical, design thinking, managing innovation, managing portfolios, developing breakthrough innovation. Cam has already talked about a leading European beverage companies that we've helped with this kind of topic. And thirdly, transformation. So that means really, well, how am I going to change my company? And we support companies in becoming more sustainable, in redefining their vision and their purpose, and building and aligning ecosystems. Because what we see is that lots of companies in the VUCA world cannot compete alone, but they need to work with partners. And ecosystem building is a skill that's quite new, and not all companies, not all organizations are yet familiar with this kind of skills. So these are the areas where we offer training. Now, what is, however, very specific, and probably, well, in my eyes, actually the reason for our success in supporting organizations is that we co-develop programs with them. Thus, the organization are and the programs that we deliver are 100% tailored to the needs of the business and the participants. Maybe we could quickly share 2 examples of 2 very different and recent programs that we've delivered. The first one was led by Camellia, and it was for Mercedes-Benz in France. Cam, would you mind sharing?
Sure, thanks, Karin. So the challenge that faced them was a combination of highly regulated environment, strong digitalization, which meant that there was an increasing, or there is an increasing challenge about how do you maintain a premium brand in the face of significant change. And the innovation unit here decided that they needed to go beyond just implementing headquarter directives. And there was, if you like, 90% of their time was dedicated towards that. So rolling out innovations that worked elsewhere globally, and again decided that the company decided, or the company leadership decided that they wanted that to be a global approach. But they were like, okay, well, but with 10% of our time, what can we do? And earlier I saw in the chat that indeed many leaders are bogged down with the day-to-day disruptions, if you like, or just the day-to-day. And so it's like, where do you get the time and space? So this particular leader in this unit wanted to explore what do we do with the 10% of our time that we have to look at, basically we have autonomy in terms of what innovation could look like for us. So we worked with them to align the team on a vision for innovation. So what would it look like for this particular geography? To prioritize quick win areas for innovation. So if we were to put that into practice, what projects would we choose and what therefore could generate a buzz in the organization about what could be possible for us even with that 10%. And the third was to learn and apply, importantly, apply innovation techniques. And so we did this through a combination of workshops, and coaching with project leads as well as the project team. And what that's led to today is actually is not just a solid team just 1 year on, but also a desire out of those quick wins now to begin to implement the innovation techniques that they've learned in entirely different areas. So not just in terms of product development or process innovation, but even process innovation in areas like finance and HR. So what this example highlights is that our customized programs can be for any level in the organization. And indeed, we can adapt timeframes for support and the nature of the support required depending on the nature of the challenge that they face.
Thank you, Karin. So that was an example of around innovation, but actually we are now moving on to leadership and working with the leadership team to make sure that we're also building the culture to support innovation throughout the organization and not just in this little innovation team, which we started with. Now, another example, if we move on to the next slide, is a top leadership program for AF Gruppen, which is the biggest Nordic construction company. Situation was quite typical for our leadership team with new members after a period of strong growth and several acquisitions. And so the objective was to get these leaders to think more long-term and get them out of their very, very operational day-to-day business. And so here the idea was, here what we did is we actually confronted them with scenarios for their industry in 10 years from now. And we asked them, well, have you actually thought about that? And the answer was, well, but not all of them. Now, what would that mean for your company? And it was quite interesting because some of the leaders said, well, for my business unit, it wouldn't be a big problem. And others said, oh, well, if this really happens, if this scenario comes true, then I'm really in a very difficult situation. And so we helped them to deduce what they would have to do today to prepare for those different scenarios. So that was the first input, but then we also brought in external speakers from companies, for example, a green champion in the construction industry who showed them what they have done to make the business much more sustainable. And so that opened doors for thinking about, okay, how can we become by 2030 the most sustainable construction company in Northern Europe? And I'm saying that being aware of the fact that Northern Europe is quite advanced compared to the rest of us. On the second day, we then said, okay, well, now we know roughly where we're going, and they continued working on that after our intervention. The second day was about, okay, now how do we actually put that into place? How do we implement that? And there we brought in several case studies from successful construction companies throughout Europe who actually run their business in very different ways. We let them discuss what it would mean if they ran their business like a Bouygues, like a Vinci, like a Goldbeck, so in a very different way. And from there, they explored what they can do with their individual business units. So basically really going all the way from thinking long-term, pushing them to think long-term, showing them different ways to make it happen, and then letting them decide themselves, okay, what does that mean for me as a leader and for my business unit? and great news here, they've come back. I already have a blocker in my agenda for 2025, and we're going to accompany them in their strategy process, because what they said is actually, you managed in a very short time to kind of open a horizon, and you helped us to do a first step towards how do we get there. So transformation, that was a day seminar. So here you go with examples on how we can help you as an organization to build capabilities.
Fantastic. And it is only understandable that thinking about the long term and the future, this can make some people and organizations be a little bit frustrated or be in discomfort, but for sure, this is not the case with us. So thinking about the future, Dimitrios, what are the next steps in the cooperation between AIMS and EDHEC FIT Chair?
Yes, Maria. So really interesting discussion and examples here by Karin and Camilla. First of all, I would like to remind everyone about the upcoming certificate in May, 15th of May, and the early bird discount of 20% that was offered by Karin and the teacher. This is, I think, based on the what I heard today, I think it is really relevant for AIMS people as well. So it's going to be a good opportunity for AIMS people, for those that would like to participate. Furthermore, what we are planning together with FIT and our global talent management global practice, we're planning to develop a customized program that will combine strategic foresight, innovation, transformation with leadership and people management skills. And this way we will be able to address our client needs when it comes to individual, but also to team development initiatives at both local and international levels. So stay tuned, reach out to AIMS and sign up for the FIT newsletter for more information. We will come back soon.
Excellent, thank you. And we can now see that the Q&A session has already started. We have 7 minutes for your questions and then for the answers coming from our guests, Karin, Camilla, and probably also Dimitrios and me. There is one question in the chat. It's coming from Arthur. What level of strategic issues stem from not knowing the real business organizations are in? This then leads us into the discussion around future strategy to capitalize on the real market we are competing in. So who'd like to comment? Karin?
I guess I can, because I come from the field of strategy, right? So where do you compete is the first question that you're going to ask yourself. And yes, I agree, particularly with this extremely rapidly changing technologies and external environments. It's quite difficult for companies to know who are their competitors tomorrow. And this is where we very often help them in thinking in ecosystems and working with potential partners, but also considering working with competitors in order to defend about new entrants, be it the big techs or other players entering the market. So yes, that is a topic. What we recommend is that on a regular basis, very often in the link with the strategy process, you take the time to step back, say, okay, well, this is what we normally focus on. What if we just open the horizon a little bit? Is what is around, could that be relevant for us? And then you think in terms of technologies, and this is also where scenarios really help, because you can envision how, if some technologies or some external changes become reality, how the competitive environment can change. So yes, a very good question, something that we tackle when we use strategic foresight, but also when we work with companies around the strategy and particularly their vision. Where do we play? Yeah. Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you so much. Now a question is coming from Tolis Volonakis. We are a B2B international business. In headquarters, we have a business controlling department, a global marketing, and a global sales one. these three are preparing the annual and strategic plans. From your experience, how could we start adding such a strategic foresight approach to our traditional one? Well,
so I can take this one. And it comes down to, first of all, understanding where your blind spots might be. So earlier we spoke about being able to identify signals or detect them, make sense of them and act on them. And obviously, and we position that you need to do all three. But certain organizations may need to do more in one area over another. And so we do have assessments that allow you to make sense of where do you need to improve, so in order to build that future fitness. And so in terms of adding a foresight approach to your traditional ones, it's understanding where your own blind spots might be. Therefore, what are the areas that you could really improve on? And that awareness allows you to also then think about, well, how do we therefore want to integrate it? Because obviously every company is at different points in their evolution with different challenges. And so it's, it's no one size fits all approach. In general, though, there is a need. We've seen many companies use foresight either to stress test existing strategy, or indeed as an innovation tool. So to identify indeed entirely new opportunities that they may have overlooked as part of traditional strategy processes.
Yeah, so maybe just to add on to what Cam said, which is 100% what we do, but which might sound complex. Actually, the great news is you keep what you're doing and we add an exercise, be it on the strategic side in scenarios or innovation, and then you'll just do what you've been doing in the past in a better way. So I think that's also one of the reasons for which we are successful, is that we don't say, oh, everything you've done in the past is no good, we have to change it all, because that, from my experience, is very hard to do. But we say, well, just look a little bit further. Just make sure that you see what you haven't seen in the past, and then we can enhance what you've been doing. And it takes some time, but as for sports, the more you train, the better you get. Also foresight.
Absolutely. And final question is coming from Zainab. Leaders face, and Zainab is the managing partner of AIMS in Egypt. We spoke about Egypt earlier, Karin, and also a board member of AIMS. So leaders face so many different types of challenges in their day-to-day, more than the past. And it can consume and distract and take away from strategic vision. So, and in terms of how leaders can strengthen certain skills, the question is, what kind of executive education can help leaders manage the pace?
Yeah, very good question. Is something that we face a lot with leaders. And I'll just provide a first answer. What we do in executive education is we help them to actually change perspective very quickly. Zoom in, zoom out. Manage the team, delegate, and then take the big picture. And in Foresight, we do the same thing, but it's basically zoom forward, look back. What do I need to do today to be successful in the future? And then zoom back to today and make it happen. So it's really about this capability to switch how you think very quickly. And successful leader, and I'm coming back to this book that I've already recommended, are able to do that, and they just naturally do that, I don't know, 10 times a day. And when it comes natural, then actually it helps you to manage the stress, all the difficulties in your day-to-day business, as well as to take a long-term vision when it helps you to prioritize.
Lovely. Thank you. So just to conclude our session today, some of the key words that we discussed over and over were partnership, resilience, perceiving, prospective,